The real Captain Kirk returned to Star Trek in Strange New Worlds' epic time travel episode. William Shatner's Captain Kirk died in Star Trek Generations, which hit movie theaters in 1994. Kirk's demise was the canonical end of the captain of the Enterprise, who was the centerpiece of Star Trek, the original series, and the 6 movies that followed. 15 years later, Chris Pine was cast as the younger Captain Kirk in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 2009, a role he played for 3 movies. However, Pine's Kirk existed in the alternate Kelvin timeline. In Star Trek's prime timeline, Kirk was dead and hadn't been seen since Star Trek Generations, until Paul Wesley. Paul Wesley's Kirk in Star Trek Strange New World Season 2 was the return of Shatner's classic captain. Star Trek Strange New World Season 2 Episode 3, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, marked the long-awaited return of the prime James T. Kirk. Paul Wesley portrayed an alternate reality Captain Kirk, who had to reset the broken prime timeline alongside LT. Land Noonien-Singh Christina Chong on a time travel mission to 21st century Toronto. At the end of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, Lieutenant Kirk officially debuted when Layan contacted him through her PADD, as Kirk was stationed on the USS Farragut. Paul Wesley's first portrayal of Captain Kirk was in Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1 finale, A Quality of Mercy. In an alternate future timeline where the United Federation of Planets was locked into a forever war with the Romulans, Captain Christopher Pike Anson Mount remained aboard the Starship Enterprise, while Kirk was captain of the Farragut. However, Wesley's inaugural version of Kirk was a grim and serious take fitting for his darker reality, and lacked the easygoing charm William Shatner brought to Captain Kirk. By contrast, Paul Wesley infused Shatner-esque qualities into his alt Captain Kirk in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This Kirk was more roguish, had a playful sense of humor, and was a genuine romantic foil for Layan, which are qualities Wesley carried over into Lieutenant James T. Kirk in his next 2 appearances in Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2. Layan became a better character because of Kirk. Lieutenant Layan Noonien-Singh is an original character introduced in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and Christina Chong quickly made Layan into one of the prequel's most endearing and fascinating faces. Layan is a descendant of Khan Noonien-Singh Ricardo Montalban, and she is defined by fear of becoming like Khan, as well as the trauma from surviving a Gorn abduction as a child. Layan closes herself off from personal interactions and counted only LT. Commander Una Chin Riley Rebecca Romine as a close friend. When it comes to legacy characters in Star Trek, few names command the kind of reverence Captain James T. Kirk does. For decades, the character has stood as the very embodiment of bold exploration and charismatic leadership. While several actors have taken up the mantle, from William Shatner to Chris Pine, Star Trek Strange New Worlds offered fans a unique twist, a return of the real Captain Kirk in one of the franchise's most ambitious and emotionally resonant time travel episodes. And it wasn't just a nostalgia trip. It was a reinvention that honored the essence of Kirk while delivering a high-stakes story with surprising emotional depth. Enter Paul Wesley's Kirk, but this time he's really Kirk. Fans got their first look at Paul Wesley's version of James T. Kirk at the end of Strange New World Season 1, but his role was limited to a parallel timeline, a glimpse, not the full picture. Many fans remained unsure. Could Wesley truly capture the balance of daring, charm, and recklessness that defined Kirk? Then came Season 2, Episode 3, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Suddenly, this wasn't just a what-if Kirk. Through a brilliant twist of time travel storytelling, this episode brought a real version of James T. Kirk, one forged not in an alternate dystopia, but in a still-developing reality that could very well be the prime timeline. He wasn't a shadow of the icon. He was the icon in the making. A bold time travel story worthy of Trek's greatest episodes. In the grand tradition of the city on the edge of forever and yesterday's Enterprise, this episode took viewers on a temporal roller coaster. Land Noonien-Singh, the security chief of the Enterprise, finds herself unexpectedly thrust into 21st century Toronto. Her only companion? A younger James T. Kirk, pulled into the timeline via a mysterious attack on the temporal plane. The episode wastes no time pairing the two for a gritty, high-stakes mission that dances between romance, tragedy, and destiny. In this world, Kirk didn't grow up in Iowa, but in space on the USS Iowa. Earth had already been conquered in his timeline. His Kirk is still bold, still clever, but shaped by very different experiences. What makes this story resonate is how these two characters, Leyen, burdened by her family's infamous past, and Kirk, shaped by an alternate history, learn from one another in profound ways. There's action, sure, but there's also vulnerability and philosophical depth. They don't just fight to save the future. They ask what it means to do so. Wesley finally finds the Kirk rhythm. If fans were still questioning Paul Wesley's ability to portray Kirk, this episode should have put those doubts to rest. Unlike his Season 1 appearance, where he felt like an off-brand echo, this time Wesley brought nuance and charisma that felt undeniably Kirk-like. He wasn't doing a Shatner impression, thankfully, but he understood the role's DNA. He was playful, bold, and smart, trading flirtatious banter with Leyen and cracking codes with a wink. At the same time, he also conveyed the deep sense of responsibility and moral conviction that has always made Kirk more than just a cocky flyboy. Wesley's performance in this episode walked a tricky tightrope, paying homage to an iconic legacy while also carving his own version of the character. He succeeded, not by copying, but by interpreting the spirit of Kirk. A romance with real stakes. One of the most surprising and moving elements of the episode was the budding romantic connection between Kirk and Leyen. Initially reluctant allies, the two slowly grew closer as they navigated a 21st century Earth full of hidden dangers and historical tipping points. Their chemistry was undeniable, and their emotional connection grounded the high-concept science fiction with genuine human stakes. This wasn't a fling for the sake of drama. It was a meaningful exploration of connection across timelines and the impossibility of love when fate has other plans. The heartbreak was inevitable. Leyen, knowing she couldn't change the timeline without catastrophic consequences, ultimately had to watch Kirk die, sacrificing himself to protect the future. The moment was gut-wrenching, not just because of what it meant for Leyen personally, but because fans believed in this version of Kirk. He wasn't disposable. He was real. Legacy and identity at the core. Beyond the action and emotional beats, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow gave us something Star Trek has always done well: reflection on legacy. Leyen has long been burdened by her family name, Noonien-Singh, forever tied to Khan, one of history's greatest tyrants. She carries that legacy like a curse. In contrast, Kirk represents the potential of forging a future untethered to the past. Yet he, too, is shaped by his origin. Their shared journey through time becomes a meditation on choice, fate, and identity. Leyen chooses to keep her pain silent to preserve the timeline. Kirk, even from a doomed reality, chooses to act with courage and heart. In the end, both characters grow, not by changing history, but by facing it. Why this is the real Captain Kirk? Let's be clear, this wasn't just another Kirk cameo or alternate universe tease. For the first time since Chris Pine's portrayal in the Kelvin timeline, we saw a version of Kirk who felt both fresh and foundational. This was a Kirk ready to become the captain we all know and respect. He wasn't polished yet, but the potential was,